listening to the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network, part of Sports Illustrated, giving you daily NFL Draft, Dynasty, and Devy Fantasy Football podcasts.
It's football time, and this is the Blitz. I'm your host, Matt Hicks, the FF educator, joined, as always, by John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar, and Skip Newton. Gentlemen, we always kick it off by saying it's football time, but it really is. We record on Wednesday nights, and the Maction is in full swing. We got a great Tuesday slate of Maction. We have more tonight here on Wednesday. It fires me up. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great. I love November. A couple weeks away from Thanksgiving, but the games are more important. We're in conference play. My college fantasy football playoffs are coming up, even though I'm not going to make it into the Kings Classic, so I'm depressed about that. But I move forward and hope to make the playoffs in some other leagues.
Man, I'm doing awesome. Another week goes by and another Gopher running back goes down for the season, but They signed PJ Fleck to a contract extension, so that is awesome. And as we were talking off air, my Gophers are ranked 20th in the college playoff. So good times, man. Good times.
Yeah, Skip, I'm sure you will do your part to make sure that ranking holds this weekend.
Oh, exactly. I have a big say in it as I go to the big game on Saturday against Illinois. I'm looking to rebound from that other game I went to, the Bowling Green disaster.
So they're like the Spinal Tap drummer right now, the Gophers running back position, huh?
Oh, man, it's crazy. God, just one after another.
All right, gentlemen, let's kick off the show, as always, with our news and notes rundown here, starting with Stanford freshman quarterback Tanner Mckee. Undisclosed injury, didn't actually show injury last week, but he was listed as questionable earlier in the week. He's going to maintain that designation heading into Friday night's big matchup against Utah. Indiana freshman quarterback Donovan McCulley will start his second consecutive game this upcoming weekend. Indiana gets Michigan. So that should be a really tough test here, second week in a row for McCulley. Stetson Bennett is currently yet to be named the starter ahead of Saturday's matchup. Betson did start against Florida, but JT Daniels appears to be back and healthy, so we will monitor that starting quarterback situation. Tennessee running back Jabari Small with a shoulder injury is expected to be near full health for Tennessee this upcoming matchup against Kentucky. Boston College tight end Trey Berry, the senior, has an undisclosed injury. He's currently listed as day-to-day for BC's matchup against Virginia Tech. Also Friday, a pretty good Friday slate this week. We're going to talk about that more here throughout the show. This is your weekly Zeb Noland update from this podcast, which, yes, at this point, I am only putting it in here as a bit because he only missed 1 week. He's coming back from meniscus surgery, and after a week, he's expected to play against Florida. Could you imagine getting meniscus surgery and then facing the Florida defense a week later? No, thank you. UCF redshirt junior wide receiver Jalen Robinson practiced Monday. He's hopeful to get back on the field for the Golden Knights in their matchup against Tulane. Pitt lost their wide receiver Taser Mack last week with an arm injury. He is still being evaluated. It sounds like he will not play this upcoming weekend, but he has not been officially ruled out. Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral, ankle, did not practice on Monday. Gentlemen, at this point, they just need to put him in bubble wrap, get some duct tape around him, and just roll him out on the field Saturday. Don't even get him near a football field before Saturday's matchup against Liberty, so we can get this 2021 quarterback matchup here between Malik Willis and Matt Corral. And then we're finishing up with some Fresno State news. Running back Ronnie Rivers is expected to be back. CFF legend, been around forever. Ronnie Rivers is expected to be back in play against Boise State on Saturday night. And Fresno State sophomore wide receiver Jalen Cropper is expected to play through the knee injury that he suffered last week. Gentlemen, that's our news and notes rundown. Any additions, any omissions?
I have a couple during our marvelous matchups that I'll talk about, but, nothing there it would have been nice if Tanner Mckee could have played because we need quarterback help. If you've been playing college fantasy football this year, quarterbacks are going down. Every time I turn around, I need a new one. But that's why we're here to help you out. Make sure you have a lineup. And I'm really confused. I mean, maybe I'm old school. Georgia, why are you not going to play Stetson Bennett? You're undefeated. You're the number one team in the country. I don't know. I don't think I make a switch, but, I'm not on the practice field. I don't get it. I think he should play.
Yeah, my thing when it comes to these injuries and stuff, you're setting lineups. If you've got two guys that are pretty much equal or close enough, I've actually just decided to go with if either one of them has an injury designation, even if it's expected to play, I'm taking them out of my lineup unless I know 100% that I'm going to be sitting in front of the TV, sitting in front of the laptop, able to watch to make sure that player's playing. I just take them out. It's just not worth it. It's really completely different than playing NFL fantasy football. You don't get the inactive list, right? Before. So I think that's the one takeaway I want to make sure that I express to people is, be a little more careful on the college side if you haven't learned that lesson already.
Yeah,
the injury report is almost nil. We give it here, but when you try to find the actual updates, it's like, oh my God, they're not. We don't even know yet. Brennan Armstrong has a broken rib. The only thing we know from the Virginia game, if you were watching it, is it looks like he whispered or said, like we're lip reading, Coach, my rib is broken. But you can't find anything from the Virginia staff. What is up with Brennan Armstrong?
I think Virginia and BYU are still scoring touchdowns. I don't know. They just about didn't stop last week. All right, gentlemen, let's jump into our marvelous matchups here for Week 10. Our marvelous matchups are the highest scoring implied totals of the week here based on Vegas odds. So we run through the top 6 matchups this week, and then we talk about the fantasy football relevancy. Of course, when there's more scoring, there's more fantasy football relevancy. And I'd say, gentlemen, we're starting off here with a potential game of the week. This might be the one I'm the most excited for. Wake Forest travels to Chapel Hill to play the Tar Heels. The over-under is 76. UNC here laying 2.5. Gentlemen, I don't know if you picked up on this. I have to point it out. Wake Forest at UNC, this is not a conference game. This is a scheduled home and home outside of ACC rules. So although it's 2 ACC teams, this will not count towards conference record. But even outside of that, Skip, what are you looking for here in this matchup?
Well, as expected with that high over-under, I'm looking for a lot of points, and I think it's going to be mostly in the passing game. Let's start with Wake Forest. Of course, Sam Hartman at quarterback is having a phenomenal season. He gets an A grade. He's throwing for over 300 yards per game, 22 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. And if that's not enough for you from a fantasy standpoint, he's also rushed the ball for 207 yards and another 6 scores. So Sam Hartman is a fantastic play. North Carolina's giving up almost 31 points a game. Of course, Wake Forest scoring over 43. So just an awesome matchup there. His number 1 wide receiver, although I've got 2 guys I both have A grades on. The first one is Jaquarie Roberson, A grade, 43 catches, 737 yards and 6 touchdowns. So really good numbers there for Roberson. And then A.T. Perry, another wide receiver, another A grade, just 36 catches, but 716 yards and 8 scores. So the passing game is awesome for Wake Forest. That's where I would like to focus my fantasy goodness on. I am going to give a barely startable C grade starting grade to Christian Beal-Smith, the running back. He's averaging about 61 yards per game, and that's okay. He doesn't do anything in the passing game, so you're not going to get anything there. However, he has scored 7 touchdowns, so nearly 1 touchdown a game. So if you don't have better options and you need someone at running back, Beal-Smith's not horrible. On the North Carolina side, they're averaging 36.5 points a game. Wake Forest has given up nearly 24. Of course, Sam Howell's been doing it every year of his career. He's going to be in the NFL next year. I'm giving him an A grade, 274 passing yards per game, 19 touchdowns with 7 interceptions. maybe not the gaudy stats from a passing perspective that we're used to. Of course, he lost a couple of great wide receivers to the NFL. However, completely stepping up his game, especially from a fantasy perspective, 585 rushing yards already with 6 touchdowns. So he was a dual threat when he came into college, and he's showing that this season more so than I think any other year. So that has been fantastic. I think he solidified his stock as a first-round quarterback, in my opinion. Let's get to the favorite target, and wow, what a target. Josh Downs, wide receiver, A+ grade, 70 catches, 979 yards with 8 scores. He is clearly the number one guy, one of the best wide receivers in college fantasy. You have to play him. He's one of those guys, you just stick him in your lineup and you don't think twice about it. They also have a pretty good running back. Ty Chandler, the transfer, I give him a B+ grade. He's averaging 83 yards per game rushing, 9 touchdowns. So he scored 9 times very nicely, and 8 catches for 158 yards with another score there. So 10 overall touchdowns. I love Ty Chandler. I think he's got some NFL upside as well, but those are my starters from this fantastic matchup.
All right, John, let's jump into things here for SMU at Memphis. Over under here is 70.5. SMU is laying 5 points. And John, before you go into this matchup, I need to give the MAC update. Kent State dropped 31 points in the second quarter against NIU. All right, John, go ahead.
I quickly saw that, and Dustin Crum went off in the second quarter. So for all those at Dustin Crum, you're very happy right now. This game, I feel like something's missing, and here's why. Historically, this game is very exciting. We have in 2019, 54-48. 2017, 66-45. Memphis on top. And then we have Memphis scoring 51, 63, 48. Last year was a little low scoring, 30-27. The reason I bring this up is I'm kind of shocked that it is the number 2. SMU is number 8. The Tigers are 20th in the nation. But here's why I'm confused a little bit. The Tigers might be without their starting quarterback, Seth Heniken. And Seth Heniken makes the offense tick. If they don't have Seth Heniken pulling the trigger this week, I believe that the Tigers are in big trouble. Peter Parrish is the quarterback, and I'm just going to be kind. He's not good. He's not good. I saw him last week, and he is not ready for prime time. With Heniken in the lineup, the Tigers' offense is explosive. I've been searching all day, looking for things on Seth Heniken. There is no update from the coaching staff. The only quote, and I quote, Seth Heniken will be back this year. That's all the coaches said. No date, no anything. If Peter Parrish is playing quarterback, it's a smash under. Brandon Thomas, I rode him for the first 4 or 5 weeks. He was playing excellent football, the running back. He slowed down a little bit this year in the last 3 or 4 games. Don't love Rodriguez Clark, their other backup running back, and he's questionable. So you have the quarterback and the backup running back out. I'm also very worried about Calvin Austin. Love Calvin Austin. He's not Josh Downs good, but he's pretty darn good when Hennigan's in there. Hennigan's out. I don't know if I'm going to play him. Love Sean Dykes, the tight end. I think in the last 2 games, he has not exceeded 7 fantasy points. Why? Peter Parrish is playing quarterback. It's a problem. Now, I think SMU is going to go out and put up 45. I know it's on the road, but they lost that heartbreaker. If you saw Houston return the kick, the last second kick, I think it was a 100-yard kick return, SMU suffers their first loss. But here's one of the keys in the game to me. Ulysses Bentley is questionable. Been searching the internet. Again, it's very hard in college football. The only rumors that I've heard is he might not play. It looks like Bentley's not going to play. Trey Sagers is the man in the backfield. Reggie Roberson, Rashee Rice, Danny Gray. You start them all the time every week. Grant Calcaterra, even though he's slowed down, I still like him at the tight end. We all need tight ends in college fantasy football. Hard to get a strong tight end. And obviously, Tana Mordecai is a great college fantasy quarterback this year. Very heavy on the SMU side. I think they're going to at least score 5, possibly 7 touchdowns against the Tigers in this. Very worried about the Memphis side of the football field.
All right, here. Middle Tennessee State University is at Western Kentucky. The over-under is 68, with Western Kentucky laying 15. So a much higher implied total for the Hilltoppers, which makes a lot of sense. I'm focusing in here on the quarterbacks for this game. Nope, I did not say the passing game. Middle Tennessee lost Chase Cunningham last week. Backup quarterback Mike DeLillo, he came in, he was 8 for 12, no touchdowns, no interceptions through the air. Not super impressive, but what I did like, 11 carries, 2 rushing touchdowns, 77 yards. I'm not saying you go out and throw Mike DeLillo right into the action here, but somebody to keep an eye on. It sounds like this Cunningham injury, again, not enough information out on it. It sounds like it might be a longer-term injury. So keep an eye on this if you're tuning in to the Middle Tennessee Western Kentucky game. Now, we know it's all about Bailey Zappi. All right, that is clear. He's absolutely dominating, and what a fantastic story coming over from the small school in Texas, and he has lit it up. You look over the last few weeks, 393 yards, 4 touchdowns against Charlotte, 382 yards against FIU, 3 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns against ODU, 5 touchdowns against UTSA, 523 yards against the Roadrunners, who got left out of the college football playoff rankings unjustifiably. So let's look past Bailey Zappi, and I want to talk about the 2 wide receivers that I think are in play here. Stearns, the wide receiver, PPR machine, fellas. The last 5 games, 10 receptions, 14 receptions, 13 receptions, 16 receptions, 17 receptions in 5 games. Ridiculous. 7 total touchdowns over the last 5 weeks. So we're going to have an emphasis on Stearns, but don't ignore Tinsley either. The last 2 weeks, Tinsley has 12 receptions, 171 yards, and 2 touchdowns. When Bailey Zappi's throwing the ball, there's plenty of love to go around. All right, Skip, I'm going to pass it back to you. The aforementioned potential battle of 2021 first-round quarterback selections here. The Hugh Freeze Bowl. It's Liberty at Mississippi. Over under 67.5. Mississippi laying 9.5 at this moment.
Yeah, when you guys gave me my 2 games, boy, you loaded me up with quarterbacks. Holy cow. Liberty and Ole Miss. This is an awesome game. Of course, we're going to start with Liberty averaging 37 points a game. Ole Miss giving up about 28.5. Malik Willis, what can you say? He is fantastic at quarterback. A+ grade for fantasy, of course. 220 yards passing per game. Decent, right? Not exciting. However, he's thrown 21 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions. So great touchdown numbers. Of course, everybody knows Malik Willis's fantasy greatness comes from running the ball. 684 yards there with 9 scores as well. So an awesome fantasy play, A+ grade. Couple wide receivers, not as great as you would think. Demario Douglas, a B grade. He's caught 37 passes, 562 yards with 5 scores. So he is the clear number 1 target, but it's not an overwhelming passing volume, but he gets decent yardage and he scored, like I said, 5 touchdowns. So a B grade there. And CJ Daniels, another wide receiver, a C grade, just 26 catches for 456. That's what keeps him down, but he does have 7 scores, which I like. So both of those guys are startable depending on what you have at that position. Of course, we've lost at least a couple of stud wide receivers to injury already this season. The running game, I'm keeping it on the bench. They spread the ball between TJ Green, Joshua Mack, and Shedro Louis. I'm going with Louis on that one. I don't know if it's Lewis or Louis, but Louis just sounds more fun. they spread it around, right? So you're not playing any one of those guys. I mean, besides, we all know who's running the ball for Liberty, and it's Malik Willis. He plays quarterback. On the Ole Miss side, some injuries to be aware of, so I will call those out as I go through the three guys that I want to talk about. Of course, Ole Miss, 39 points per game. Liberty just given up a little under 18, so better defense on the Liberty side, but they don't usually play top teams that score like Ole Miss. Matt Corral, assuming he plays, and I'm guessing he will just because the dude's tough, and I think he's going to find a way to get out there. A grade, 275 yards passing per game, 15 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions, but 519 rushing yards, which is really good, and then 10 rushing touchdowns. So amazing. He scored more rushing touchdowns than Malik Willis. But again, you have to check that injury status. So make sure you know what's going on before that game. So that's one of those where I think it's worth it if he's on your team, check out the game right before and make sure that he's playing. Plus, he's a pretty high level quarterback. So hopefully you'll be able to find some information ahead of time on that one. Dontario Drummond, wide receiver, I'm giving him a B grade, 40 catches, 658 yards, and 6 scores. But again, he's another guy. Check the injury status on him. He's dealing with something, so you want to be careful there. Both those guys, I mean, if they're playing, of course you're starting them. But like if Corral's out, might want to rethink Drummond. And of course, if Drummond is out, you got to keep him out of that lineup. And then at running back, I'm going to give a starting grade, just a C grade on Snoop Connor. He only averages 54 yards per game, but he scored 10 touchdowns, and you can't ignore that kind of volume. He does, however, need those touchdowns in order to be relevant, but I'm still giving him a C grade, Snoop Connor at running back.
All right, here we're going to go to John. The Yellow Jackets here traveling to the red-hot Miami Hurricanes. Tyler Van Dyke's Miami Hurricanes, John. What are you looking for in this game with an over-under of 63.5? Miami laying 10.
Let's start on the Miami side of the football, because I wrote about Tyler Van Dyke 2 weeks ago in my waiver wire Gemstones column, and he's from Connecticut. So I had heard about this young man. He played at Suffield Academy. Unfortunately, I knew he was never going to go to UConn, which is just a whole nother story. Like, he's too good to play for the Huskies. So he ends up in Miami. Derek King gets hurt, and Van Dyke got off to a little bit of a slow start. And many people thought Jake Garcia was going to get this job. But Van Dyke, the redshirt freshman, second year on the campus, has won the job. He has played excellent football. He just went in the pit and upset the Panthers. Now, I was watching that game to scout Kenny Pickett. So I saw the whole Miami game. Van Dyke played excellent. Going up north, basically one of the biggest games of his career, redshirt freshman at Pittsburgh, played excellent. Now, I started him in DFS, so I was even excited to watch both sides of the football, Pickett and him. He's had a 12-4 touchdown interception ratio. And this is amazing. As a redshirt freshman, he is averaging 9.2 yards a pass. He's throwing the ball down the field. He's been playing great. And if you haven't noticed, Jalen Knighton, he is a player. He is so good. He's explosive. He's fast. He's a game breaker. He's a difference maker. We haven't had a superstar in the backfield at Miami in a long time. Jalen Knighton looks like one of those players who could be a superstar. One of the things I like about him, he's a good pass catcher. He has 13 receptions for 167 yards, and he scored twice through the air, 4 times on the ground. I love him. We have the Oklahoma transfer, Charleston Rambo, who is worth starting. And I'm going to give a shout out to Matt. He turned our viewers on last week to Keyshawn Smith. I played him in DFS, and I had him and Van Dyke, and they had a very good DFS game, especially for the salary implications. Miami is playing very good football. I believe they're 4-4. Yep, they're 4-4. They might be saving Coach Diaz's job here. If they win this one and they get a bowl berth down the road, Diaz he'll come back, because this team is forming into a nice offensive overall team. Georgia Tech, it's all about one player, Jeff Sims. When Jeff Sims is on the field, Georgia Tech scores points. Your fantasy team's happy. You're happy. The Yellow Jackets are humming. Very good dual threat quarterback. 1,274 yards passing, 380 yards rushing. 11 touchdowns passing, 4 touchdowns rushing. What makes him more interesting? When he plays, Jahmyr Gibbs is good. It's as simple as that. Jahmyr Gibbs gets open lanes. He gets into space. He catches passes. When Jeff Sims is in the game, Jahmyr Gibbs is a very good running back. They need each other. There's a symbiosis between the two of them on the field. The Yellow Jackets are better when Sims is around. If you want a sneaky wide receiver, they have a senior, late bloomer, not a dynasty asset, not an NFL player. Kyrick McCowan, in the last 3 games, has scored 4 touchdowns. He has gotten 53, 86, and 39 yards. For the season, he has 7 touchdowns. He seems to be Sims' guy. I'm watching him closely. He's in my queue. But if you're desperate wide receiver, Kyrick McCowan, the wide receiver of the Yellow Jackets, is playing good football lately.
All right, and rounding things out here, Ohio State at Nebraska, over under 64.5. Ohio State laying 14.5 as of time of recording. Listen, gentlemen, Nebraska is gross. Adrian Martinez is gross, but he is always in play for fantasy. All right, and he's in play because of his legs. Now, I know what you're saying. It's Nebraska at Ohio State. Why would I play Adrian Martinez? Look at Nebraska's 2 toughest games this season. Against Michigan State, they went to Adrian Martinez 21 times on the ground, 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. Against Oklahoma, they went to Adrian Martinez, 17 for 34 on the ground and a touchdown. Against Ohio State, they're going to be looking to slow down the offense, control pace of play, and if they are going to even have a shot at this game, it's going to involve Adrian Martinez running the ball. They get blown out early, he's going to end up throwing the ball a lot. All right, so there's some sneaky upside here on the Nebraska side of the ball. And I don't need to tell you anything revolutionary about the Ohio State offense. All right, we know what's happening. But what I will say is, it could be easy to pump the brakes on C.J. Stroud after his down week against Penn State. And this is the parameters of an Ohio State quarterback. I just told you that he had a down week. He went 22 for 34, 305 with a touchdown and no interceptions. But compared to his normal patterns of scoring, that sounds down. Against Indiana and Maryland, the 2 games prior to the Penn State game, a combined 45 for 61, 672 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. You can, confidently start C.J. Stroud against Nebraska. And I just wanted to point this out. Trayvion Henderson absolutely tearing it up, goes 28 for 152 and a touchdown against Penn State. He has scored a rushing touchdown in every game this season except against Skip's Golden Gophers, where he scored through the air. He has 4 multi-touchdown games. The true freshman Trayvion Henderson is taking over college football. Next year, he is going to be an absolute talk of the town, a highlight top 5 player in the country. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. All of the Ohio State receivers are in play, as always. No surprises there. Gentlemen, let's jump into our CFF sleepers section here. Again, we pick out our quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and flex every week. We aim for low ownership percentages and players that are going to exceed expectations. So, John, I'll let you kick it off with your CFF sleepers of the week.
First, I just want to give you an amazing update on some MAC action here. Kent State 38, Northern Illinois 27. Absolutely love the MAC. Now, I didn't have the guts to pull this trigger. Rocky Lombardi, the Northern Illinois quarterback. I was like, I can't take Rocky Lombardi, the former Spartan. However, I should have. 362 yards and 3 touchdowns tonight. MAC action, baby. They just score points in the MAC. It is amazing. What a night. As soon as I get off this, I'll be watching the game, the fourth quarter of both games, the rest of the evening. All right. Now, I have to give you a sleeper so that you can pick up after you watch or listen to this show. So I'm giving you quarterback Jace Garbers, California. Talk about a late bloomer. I believe he was the recruiting class of 2017. This is his 5th year on campus. California, he had a very nice 2019. Last year wasn't so bad, got off to a slow start. But this is amazing. Last 3 games, 43, 33, 28 points. The 2 games are on September 25th. He went to Washington. He had 39 fantasy points. Chase Garbers is playing excellent football for the California Golden Bears. And guess who he plays? One of the worst teams in the nation. Arizona, despite giving USC a game, which Trojan fans must have been freaking out in the second half. Arizona's now on a 20-game losing streak. I don't think they have enough firepower to beat Chase Garbers and this Golden Bears offense. I love Garbers here. I think he's going to go off. Another player who has not been talked about, because again, West Coast, he's in the Pac-12, transfer, right program, right time, right scheme. Taekwon Thomas of Utah. It took him a while to get this backfield and take command, but he is thoroughly in command of the Utes backfield now. In the last 4 games, 16, 20, 21, and 24 carries. Fantasy points, 17, 14, 20, and 40. Taekwon Thomas has another terrific matchup against Stanford on Friday night. I picked him up on 2 teams this week. Thomas is playing well for Utah. He's still available in 69% of leagues. Go and get him if you need a quarterback. He's very good. Now, the next one, wide receiver Gary Bryant. This is a little bit taking a leap of faith. You shouldn't probably know by now, but Drake London's out for the year. Huge loss. I mean, just wow. He was playing such good football. And anyone who lost him on their fantasy team, you're not going to recuperate 22 targets and 14 receptions every week from Drake London. But I've been looking at this USC wide receiver core. The position you want is the inside/slot receiver. I think Taj Washington is more of your X. He's going to move outside. Gary Bryant, I think, and again, we don't know what the coaching staff's definitely going to do. But if I had to take an educated guess, I think Gary Bryant is going to go into that Amon-Ra St. Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Drake London slot inside position. If Gary Bryant sees the majority of the snaps inside, that tells me one thing. He's going to get peppered with tons of targets. He's going to be peppered. You can go out and get Taj Washington, but Gary Bryant is also available in 84% of leagues. Devy owners, watch Gary Bryant. He's good. He's got a chance here. I don't think he's Drake London good, but he could be in that Amon-Ra St. Brown class. Go get him. I like him this weekend. I think he's going to lead the team in targets over Taj Washington this week. And I know Skip has seen this player, and I know he must be getting a lot of talk out in the Midwest, much more so, I would think, than he is getting national press. But if you're not paying attention, Wisconsin's got a freshman, Braylon Anderson. What's he, Skip? He's about 240? Is that what is he about that big?
I don't know if he's that big, but yeah, he's a big boy. That's for sure. He is a full load.
He's a full load. And now he's splitting carries with Chez Mazzulli. And I think that's kind of kept people from picking him up on the waiver wire. He's only owned on 18% of the teams. But you know what? I don't care, because Wisconsin's not throwing the ball. They're literally throwing the ball like 9 times a game out of desperation, like, 3rd and 23. Okay, we're going to throw the ball. Other than that, Chez Mazzulli and Braylon Allen are basically splitting the carries. Allen has gotten in the last 4 games 20, 12, 16, and 18 carries. He's had over 100 yards in each of the last 4 games, and he has scored 4 touchdowns. Look, you love this system. Jonathan Taylor, Melvin Gordon, we can go a long way back. The Badgers run the football. Braylon Allen, go get him, everyone. He is just a fun guy to watch play football.
All right, here we go onto my CFF sleepers of the week. I accidentally added a Wednesday night play. I thought Western Michigan was a Thursday night play. So I listed Caleb Elby on the show sheet. So I will not talk about why he should perform well, but I'll give our Maction update instead and let you know that currently Caleb Elby is 19 for 26 with 204 yards and a touchdown. So I still feel pretty good about my pick. He gets in the end zone one more time, and I'll look smart. Instead, I will actually talk about players that have not played yet at time of recording. Pat Garlow of Boston College. This is my pick. A little bit of a sneaky play here. Only 11% ownership of cross college fantasy football. Here's what I'm looking for. Boston College is going to Virginia Tech Friday night. Virginia Tech is 99th in the country in yards per carry allowed at 4.8 on the season. Now, the last 3 weeks, they've allowed 5.9 yards per carry. Now, Garlow hasn't actually been tearing it up. The last couple weeks, he went 16 for 85, or I should say the last 2 weeks, he has averaged 16 carries for 85 yards. That was against Syracuse, and that was against Louisville. 2 tougher opponents relative to what Boston College is playing. So I believe that Garlow could have a similar volume there if he's up between 16 and 20 carries. And if he takes advantage of Virginia Tech's high yards per carry allowed, we could see him go over 100 yards. He finds the end zone once. He absolutely hits. Pat Garlow for Boston College. Wide receiver, Ali Jennings, Old Dominion here. If he hits, I'm going to feel good because he has a 2% ownership, rostership in Fantrax across college fantasy football. Looking at this matchup here, Jennings has 17 receptions for 205 yards over the last 2 weeks there for the Monarchs. Now, they're playing FIU this week, the 4th worst pass defense in the country when looking at yards per game allowed. They're allowing 309 yards per game. There's an opportunity here for ODU and FIU to push each other offensively here. And if it does happen, Ali Jennings is probably going to be the Monarch to be featured here in this passing attack. I guarantee he's out there in your league unless you are a part of the 2% there where he is rostered, a low chance here. And I'm going with a higher rostership percentage here, giving you an 11 and a 2%er. I'm allowed to go up into the 40s here. So I'm going to go up into the 40s, and I'm going to take Mississippi State's Jaquavius Marks. Now, Marks, known for being a pass-catching back, that's really where he builds a foundation for fantasy football. But last week, he ends up with 20 carries against Kentucky, 58 yards and a touchdown. Doesn't sound overly impressive, but let's translate that into his matchup here against Arkansas this week. Arkansas, over the last 3 weeks, have the 10th worst rushing yards per game allowed in the country, averaging 234 yards per game. We know Marks has the foundation in the passing game. And so against an Arkansas defense that has been beaten up over the last 3 weeks, I think Arkansas overperformed early in the season. And I don't say that in a bad way. They started off the season very well. I think it's still a unit molding, a unit getting used to playing with each other, and probably a little worn down from a tough SEC schedule. I think Marks has the advantage to take advantage of that. He's somebody who week to week you may be debating putting it on your bench, putting it in your flex spot. In shallower CFF leagues, he may be a free agent option. I think this is somebody that you could play with confidence here going into week 10. And Skip, I will let you finish us off here with your Fantastic Four CFF sleepers of the week.
Thanks, Matt. Say you pick a guy that's only 2% owned, and not only can you talk about a guy that's up near 50, but you could talk about a guy who's already playing. That's it.
Provide you a host that can do it all, Skip.
The best part is I was going to pick a guy, and I started looking into him. I was like, wait a minute. Ah, man, he played last night. So I was going to pick a guy that played on Tuesday night. So glad I caught that. All right, my first guy, Devin Leary from North Carolina State. He's owned in 27% of leagues. He's at Florida State this weekend, who's giving up nearly 27 points per game. Leary's had a nice season, 270 passing yards per game with 21 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions, and he's run for 2 scores. So Leary is a nice quarterback option if you've had a guy that's gotten injured, if you have a guy on bye. At running back, one of my guys I talked about, Ty Chandler at North Carolina is one of my guys. I also have always loved Chianti Ingram. I just can't give up on him at USC, Southern Carolina. 33% owned. He's at Arizona State, just giving up a little under 21 points per game. But I really like Ingram's opportunity here. He's getting more and more involved in the offense. 761 yards on the season with 5 scores. He's caught 17 passes for 106. Now, generally speaking, I'm one of those fantasy guys that believes that if a great player leaves an offense, it hurts the entire offense. What's bad for the offense is bad for the offense. So I don't like the huge injury to Drake London there. You know, the offense might suffer a little bit, but it's possible that a few more touches might go Ingram's way. So he could benefit, at least from a volume perspective there. At wide receiver, Ryan O'Keefe from UCF, 28% owned versus Tulane, who's giving up a whopping 40.9 points per game. So almost 41. He's caught 47 passes for 488 yards and 4 scores. I love his opportunity here to put up 100 and a touchdown. And then my last guy, another wide receiver, Taekwon Thornton at Baylor, 30% owned, playing at TCU. Not sure what's going to happen there with the coaching mix-up, but TCU's given up 31.5 points per game. Thornton's a guy that I really like. I think he might actually be seen on Sundays once he goes pro. 37 catches, 601 yards with 5 scores. So Thornton's a guy you can definitely put into your flex.
All right, gentlemen, here we go. Our best bets of the week segment here. Before we make our picks for this week, John on the season, 18-11-1. I'm at 15-12. Not the best week last week. And then Skip is at 14-9-1. Each week we give you 1 pick for point spread, 1 for over-under, and 1 for the money line. On the season, a little down last week as a group. On the season, we are still 47-32-2, 58%. John, I'll let you go ahead and run through your picks. And John's weekly meeting.
I screwed up. Let me just start. I'm still bitter because I took
the baddest of the beats.
I still took Florida State plus 10, and I took the under Florida State and Clemson. Literally with no time left on the clock, Clemson fumbles a hook and ladder, and they recover a touchdown. And I just started burning money at that moment. I mean, it was 24-20, like no time left. Like, I'm happy, I'm dancing. My wife and I are going to go to Chili's. We're all going to live large. I even tell them we can get off the regular menu. We don't have to eat on the specials tonight. I might get my daughter an ice cream for dessert. And next thing I know, we are buying off the dollar menu at McDonald's. I cannot afford Chili's, honey, because god darn Clemson scored a touchdown on a failed hook and ladder with no time off, and Daddy lost everything. Oh, my God, I'm still mad about that. But regardless of that, I must move on. So, been pounding and pounding. This week, I want to eat at Chili's, damn it. I promised my daughter we'd have a real meal this week. So, I'm still in shock, and this might be a trap. How is Wake Forest undefeated, 8-0, an underdog to UNC? I understand that UNC is home. They have two players, essentially, Josh Downs and Sam Howell. Wake Forest is loaded on offense. They're one of the better offenses in the nation this year. Either it's a trap and I'm going to lose it. But watching both of these teams extensively all year long, there is no doubt in my mind that Wake Forest is the better football team. I'll take the 2.5 on the road. I think the Demon Deacons are going to go into North Carolina. They're going to win this game. So give me the 2.5 Demon Deacons. And this game, I know Skip mentioned the two quarterbacks, and I was more excited until the Rebels' entire wide receiver core is now injured or off the field. And Matt Corral is like walking wounded out there right now. Why do I say that? I think they're going to run the football. The Rebels, if you've been watching the Rebels, they've transitioned that football team. First 5 games of the year, they were a wide open, shoot 'em up offense. They're now kind of a power running game. You mentioned Snoop Connor. I'm going to mention another running back I like this week. They run the football. And here's what I'm afraid about. I don't think Liberty's going to be able to score. Have you seen Liberty's schedule, people? Bethune Cleon, whatever that school is, their schedule is terrible. They have not even come close to playing a team of Mississippi's level. I think Malik Willis is going to get stopped stone cold. Give me the under Liberty and Mississippi. I think Mississippi slows the clock down by running the ball, and I just don't think Malik Willis is going to have those 60-yard touchdowns against the Rebels. And then on the money line, I know it might sound nuts. Texas has got to break this terrible second half streak. If you watch Texas the last 3 weeks, I think they've led at halftime of every game, and Texas comes out and chokes in the second half. They got to stop the streak somewheres. I'm getting plus 210. Give me Texas against Iowa State on the money line, plus 210. Those are my best bets this week.
All right, here. I'm starting with the point spread. I get it. Mizzou looks bad, okay? And I get it. Georgia looks good. It's currently 39.5. How do you not take 39.5 points? I'm going with the Tigers. Here's my thinking here. All right, you start with Georgia. All right, in order to win by 39.5 points, you have to score 40 points. All right, so Georgia this season has scored 40 points once, more than 40 points once. All right, it was UAB, University of Alabama, Birmingham, 56 points. They did score exactly 40 against South Carolina. Oh, sorry, twice. They put up 62 against Vanderbilt. Okay, I get that. I'm not expecting Georgia to run up the score on Mizzou far enough to create that 39.5 point spread. Missouri, not good. You look at the toughest game they probably played this year, Texas A&M. They put up 14 points. They put up 28 against Kentucky. So against some of the tougher defenses, 24 against Tennessee. I know that's not the tougher defense. So they've been scoring even when they've had difficult matchups for their defense to hold. Here's the bottom line, too. Georgia gets up. They're going to start running the ball because Mizzou's run defense is absolutely garbage. So they're going to score points on Mizzou, but they're going to do it on the ground. 39.5, all right? I'm not saying that Mizzou is not going to be competitive in this game. Do not get me wrong. But 39.5, That's a whole heck of a lot of points. I'm going to take that. I got to get me some late night action. Nevada, San Jose State. I believe they're playing in the 10 o'clock slot. If I'm remembering correct, they are in the night slot. You have a really potent Nevada offense, has been scoring really consistently. And San Jose State's offense has been moving the ball as well. I'm going to take the over 54.5 on that. That just simply seems too low for me. And in what I believe to be the only ranked matchup of the week, Auburn faces off against Texas A&M. It is a near pick'em game for me, but Auburn at plus 168, that's enough action for me. They're coming off of a great win against Mississippi, a big win against Arkansas the week before. They beat LSU by 5 earlier on this season, only an 8-point loss to Penn State. That's a good game. Now they lost 34-10 to Georgia. In the context of the season, 34-10 against Georgia, that doesn't look too bad. So I think this line is more about Texas A&M than it is Auburn, but Auburn's riding the hot hand. Texas A&M is coming off of a South Carolina game, a Mizzou game, and then Alabama the week before. But it's been a while since they've really faced a tough opponent. They have Ole Miss the following week. I could see this as being a little bit of a sandwich game here for Texas A&M. So at plus 168, I'll take the Tigers. And gentlemen, I don't want to say it too loud. I don't want to jinx it, but Bo Nix not looking too bad.
I know. I said last week I can't trust Bo Nix, but he is playing better. I have to give him credit.
I'll tell you what, John. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, your name is Bo Nix. I'm going to call for it again.
I can't put my money on Bo Nix. And I can't wait for Georgia to win 40-0 on Saturday.
Oh, no. 40-2. Give me one safety. We'll cover.
All right. My point spread is Pittsburgh minus 21 at Duke. The bottom line is Pittsburgh is really good and Duke is not. So I think they're going to cover that spread. I don't usually take such a big favorite, but I'm taking that one. I love Pittsburgh in that matchup. Going to the over-under, Illinois and Minnesota. Over-under is at 44. I like the under here. Both defenses are better than you'd think, especially my Golden Gophers. If you look at the points they've given up this season, it's not as bad as one would even think just looking at the sheer numbers. 151 points allowed in 8 games. But you got to remember, like 45 of those were in the first loss to Ohio State. They've been surprisingly good defensively ever since. I think we'll see more of that again this Saturday, which is why I like this game to go under that 44-point total. And then for my money line game, Louisville plus 170 versus Clemson. Clemson's not the Clemson of old. We've talked about that all season. I like home underdogs. I think this is going to be a good game. I think it can stay close because Clemson's offense has been terrible. I'll take Louisville plus 170 to win that game outright at home. Clemson's only 1-2 on the road, so I like Louisville.
All right, John, finishes out here this week with your Fantastic Four college football DraftKings slate.
We have a great 13-game slate ahead. So many exciting games, and I wanted to find you value. So there's Josh Downs on the slate. We've been talking about him tonight. If you want to go to Sam Hartman or Sam Howell, Malik Willis is on this slate. And Liberty's, I don't remember the last time I've seen Liberty on the slate. Might have been once this year if my memory serves me. So there's a lot of good high-end players. I needed to find you value. Matt mentioned him. I feel even bad talking about him, but I have to look at it from an unbiased, statistical, numerical standpoint. The reality is Adrian Peterson Martinez. Sorry, why did I say Peter? Oh, because he just signed with the NFL. My brain's thinking about Adrian Peterson. But Adrian Martinez, he scores fantasy points. He's a dual threat quarterback. It doesn't always look pretty. I'm sure Skip knows. He's seen plenty out in the Midwest of Adrian Martinez. He can drive you nuts as a fantasy owner and as a Cornhusker fan. But at the end of the day, the points are usually there. When you look at his box scores this year, he's only gotten below 22 points once all season, and that was against Skip's Minnesota Gophers. Other than that, he has scored over 22 points in every game. He's averaging 27.6, Why do I like it? He's home in a home underdog in a very high over-under. And if you've not been watching the Buckeyes, their weakness is run defense. You've got to run against Ohio State. We saw it with Oregon. I think Wisconsin, I don't know, are they on the slate? I'd even look at that. Skip, do you know if Wisconsin plays Ohio State?
Yeah, I'm sure they do, but let me check it while you talk. Hold on.
Because I think the way to beat Ohio State is you run at those linebackers. They're getting better, but I still would run. So why do I like that? I think Martinez might get 80 yards rushing. They don't play each other?
No Wisconsin, Ohio State this year.
Interesting, because that would have been interesting to see that offense now against Ohio State's D. So I like Adrian Martinez. You choose the other quarterback if you want to pay up. I mentioned it before. I do not think Ulysses S. Bentley is going to play for the Mustangs. To me, that makes Trey Sagers a must start. 24 and 20 DraftKings points in the last 2 games. And even before that, when he was sharing time, 13, 14, 14. Trey Sagers, I like the salary savings here. We had mentioned it, the second highest over-under. Go for it. I love him in this matchup. I just think Mississippi's going to pound Liberty. I don't see how Liberty can slow down this offense. From a physical upfront standpoint, Mississippi should have their way with Liberty's defensive front seven. Plus, you have to run the ball because you keep it away from Malik Willis. I like Henry Parrish here. You can go Snoop Connor, and I get it. But Henry Parrish is significantly less in salary. He's only $4,900. And in the last 4 games, he's had 18, 10, 10, and 12 carries. But what I like about him more, he's had 1, 5, 2, and 1 reception. Henry Parrish here is a nice salary saver in this game against Liberty, where I think the Rebels just kill the clock and they pound Liberty here. And this one, I'm kind of surprised. Jaquarie Robinson is great. But do you know that very quietly, ATP Perry is averaging more fantasy points than Jaquarie Roberson? He is right now $800 less. Matt and I have done this, and I've said this all year. Whenever it was Olave and Wilson of Ohio State, I took the cheaper of the 2. That's just how I play it when I have explosive offenses. I got this explosive offense at Wake Forest. I have Roberson and Perry. Perry's $800 savings. He's actually scoring more points than Roberson. I'll take A.T. Perry. That's my Fantastic Four, and I left you enough to build a nice lineup around it.
All right, there you have it. Our DFS best bets, CFF sleepers, marvelous matchups, and all the news and notes you need for your Week 10 college fantasy football slate. As always, we appreciate you listening. Best of luck to everybody in your Week 10 matchups, and we will be back at it next week to preview the Week 11 slate.